Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to do something a bit different because I usually cover gaming topics on this channel, but this channel is about discussing topics and games. And something that's really been concerning me as of late is the change in writing for Marvel Comics. So as we all know, Stan Lee, literally last year, just passed away. And it's so sad to see what's becoming of the legacy that he has left us with, as the comics, the way that they're written right now for Marvel at the moment. Oh my gosh, it's horrendous. So I've got 3 things that I really want to talk about in this video and get my point across. Alright, number 1. The change in the writing is focused on getting rid of classic and beloved characters to either introduce new ones or build up lesser known characters. Now, I can understand why you'd want to, introduce characters, show that, hey, these characters are pretty cool and you can connect with these characters just as well as you can connect with popular characters like Spider-Man or the Incredible Hulk. But as I stated in a previous video that I probably just published not too long ago, nothing is wrong with diversity. It's when you get rid of something that is perfectly fine for diversity. And this is the issue that Marvel has at the moment with all different Marvel. Getting rid of people like the Incredible Hulk. They killed off the classic Incredible Hulk and then replaced it with let's just, I'm not even going to speak the name. And then, they replaced, who was it? Darn it. I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, they tried to replace the X-Men with the Inhumans, and they're like, well, the Inhumans are technically mutants still, so they're like the X-Men, but they're still not the X-Men, which is the problem. And it's just this whole concept of, yeah, it's cool to build up a character. It's cool to want the background characters to get a bit of this starlight. That's cool. The problem is, you don't have to get rid of the characters that we know and love. If you were to ask someone right now, for example, if they liked, let me think of someone. Someone in the background. If they liked Scarlet Witch over Doctor Strange, even though she's not really a background character per se, 9 times out of 10 they're probably going to say they like Doctor Strange more. And it's not necessarily that they hate Scarlet Witch, it's just Doctor Strange has been there for a really long time, so they got to learn more about him compared to Scarlet Witch or something. So like I said, remember, diversity isn't bad. It's when you get rid of things that aren't broken or don't need to be fixed for diversity that it becomes a problem. And this goes on to my second topic. And like I said, this channel is not about politics, but this has to be said. SJW elements have completely ruined the writing, while previous comics would try and get a point across and teach something like some kind of moral message. These comic writers have decided that they're awakened, air quotes, and that they're trying to lecture the reader about how they're wrong for thinking that the writer is wrong. And what I mean by this is that, if you don't know, there's quite a few, like, comics right now with, the like, thoughts on feminism and equality and all of that, and it's like, nowadays comics aren't really about, for Marvel at least, they're not really about teaching this moral lesson where, like, the character represents something, like Spider-Man representing always trying to be better, or the Incredible Hulk representing the constant search of peace while constantly having it stolen away from you. Or while Captain America represents true freedom and, liberty for all, like the actual thing that America is supposed to represent. These comics are just, the writers write this story where it's like less action based and less moral based and more on, hey, you reader, yeah, you see, I've woken up and I've realized that women are just as good. No, I take that back. They're far superior to men. And if you even remotely think that they're not, you are an idiot. And I'm going to write an entire comic book with this character that you don't give a crap about to prove that you are an absolute moron for thinking otherwise. It's just this huge lecture. It's not even about teaching this like story at the end of the day. It's not really about writing a good story anymore. It's just about lecturing the reader that they're wrong for preferring the older way a comic was written, even though it didn't really give a crap about feminism and equality and all of that. It didn't focus on that. It focused on morals. It focused on characters having a meaning, the true meaning of characters, like I just stated. You know, the characters represented an aspect of life. Like I said, you know, Spider-Man representing someone always wanting to better themselves, things like that. But these comics now, these characters are just there as a huge microphone in front of the writer, and the writer is just lecturing the reader, so the reader doesn't even feel like they're reading a comic. It's more like they're just reading this book written by some SJW idealist. Like, that's not the point of why we read comics. Which is going to get me in my last topic and the main issue with this overall. Instead of treating something like comics, instead of treating this neutral and keeping it out of politics and out of the societal pressures of our world, they're converting them into something that they try and sway readers to a cause, such as supporting a political party or the SJW parties. And that's the main problem with the Marvel comics at the moment, guys. That's the main problem. You see, comics, Stan Lee wanted us to have comics as an escape. Okay? We all know that this world isn't perfect. We all know that this world can be terrible at times. And as a kid who couldn't come from this, guys, and growing up relatively not the greatest, I could always look to a comic to, like, just take my mind off things. Comics and video games. And the thing is, I didn't read a comic to get the same bullcrap going on in that comic that I see going on in the real world. I don't read a comic because of that, and I highly doubt that many other people who read comics because of that either. They read it to escape. They read it to go someplace where they can actually see justice being delivered. Not in this injustice world, but when they go into the comic, they say, well, look, Captain America's beating up the bad guys. People are actually paying for their crimes and things like that. But now, the writers, they're bringing in politics to our comics. They're bringing in SJW elements to our comics. They're taking away the characters that stood for things that meant so much. They meant so much to us because of what they represented in life. And they're replacing them with these SJW characters that literally have no backstory. Their character development is about the size of a grain of sand, and then they have the audacity to essentially besmirch the reader for not agreeing with the way that they're written. Like, to this day, like, if you go to, like, some of the writers on Twitter, and I'm not going to say their names because I'm not trying to spread hate, they will literally block anyone that asks them a question about why the comics are written this way. So what does that tell you? They don't want criticism on how they're writing. They just care about you accepting that, hey, I'm writing a good way, and if you don't like it, F you, I'm still going to write it this way. This is incredibly terrible for Marvel Comics right now. If this continues, then I could easily see Marvel going bankrupt from this, because at the moment, people aren't buying comics. They're not buying comics because who wants to read an SJW politics-filled piece of crap? Who wants to be lectured for how they're in the wrong for wanting the old way that comics were written? Who wants to read that? No one wants to read that. And that's the problem that these writers don't seem to understand. You know, it's an absolute disgrace to Stan Lee's memory, who just recently passed, to literally just see all your life's work, because it was occurring while he was alive, I'm just saying, but to just see all of your work, like, right at the end of your life, just being ruined by these freaking people who have taken over the writing positions that I don't even remotely know how they got into those positions with the writing that they're capable of. They might as well go and write some kind of philosophical book, because that's what they're interested in. These are comics. These are comics. They're not a place where you put your little ideologies and your philosophies and your politics and whatever kind of parties you support. They're not a place for that. Keep it to a philosophy book. Keep it to a freaking college course, a professor. Keep it to that. Don't corrupt our comics with your little ideologies because you're taking advantage of the position that you have. The writing in Marvel is horrible. It's cancer, and it needs to get cut the flip out right now, because if it doesn't, it's going to freaking drive Marvel Comics into the ground. And while, yeah, that may not kill Marvel as a whole, because, you know, the MCU and that's selling and all that crap, I don't think anyone wants Marvel Comics to just be always remembered after they, like, go out of business because of this bullcrap, as going out of business because of SJW bullcrap. Oh, man, I had to get that out of my way, guys. You don't know how long I've been thinking about this. Like, I've seriously been thinking about that for a really long time, because if you just read a comic now, and you read a comic that probably, like, from 8 years or so ago, there's just such a dramatic change, and it's so sad to see, man. SJWs just cannot keep their fingers off of what we love, and it's so annoying. So I know that this was a little different, once again, but I had to get that out of my system. I love Marvel Comics too much to sit up here and not record that video. I love Marvel Comics too much. So that being said, I really want to know what you guys think about that whole situation. Let me know in the comments how you feel about that. And how, do you read Marvel Comics still, or if you don't, tell me why, and is it for this reason, because I completely understand you. As always, I just want to inform you that if you would like to subscribe to my channel, please hit subscribe and notification bell, but even that won't really work sometimes, because, yay, YouTube, it's 2019, fix your freaking platform. And, as always, rate the video what you think it deserves, tell me what you want to see in the future in the comments below, and as always, I will see all of you in the next video. Take care, all.